All right. So once we have seen, one important thing. Now the options for every panel or for any tool can be opened by keeping press one of the buttons. So for example, the storyboard, if you keep it pressed, you see all the options listed here. Same thing if you go, for example, to here to the camera options for orbit, dolly, rotate, etc., you will open all the options there. When a tool is very commonly used and you don't want to change between all the different options, we just list it here automatically, like rotate or scale or whatever, to have a quick access without open any menu. But if that's not the case, if you want just to use less common used tools, you have menus here to organize things in a cleaner way. Okay, so now let's go to the absolutely most important new aspect of Mistika 10, which is the color grade. I'm going to open this tool, and there we go. Now we have here the new color grade for Mistika 10. When we design this this interface, we focus on two areas. First, take the current features and organize them in a much easier way, in a nicer way, in a way that you don't need to make so many clips, so many clicks, and move between so many panels, so many menus. Some of the options in the old color grade interface were a bit hidden, like, for example, loading the LUT3D, which is now already there, or the clamp options and all the settings options for the clamp. In previous versions, you needed to navigate through the whole color grade panel. Now we have designed this new tool set in a much more easier way. But again, we are not limiting anything. In fact, we are bringing more features in a quicker way, like again, the LUT3D or the clamp, etc. Just to explain a little bit how works the design of this new interface. Basically, we have a top toolbar here with the basic options of your grading: the mute, the highlight, the inside outside, the blending mode, RGB, the channels at the end, lumen chroma, the key source to know from where you're making the key, the recover mode, LUT, and clamp. These options are always visible. Doesn't matter where you navigate in your color grade, they are always visible. So you know at the whole time the basic settings of your grading. Then we have another area for selecting the tools. So we have the qualifier, the primary, bands, fixed, curves, and filters. As you may see, we have removed ranges. It's not the fact that we have removed ranges, we have integrated with the bands because it was always part of bands. So we have integrated the ranges tool setting there. And we have removed the Windows panel because we have the shapes in here, and we are moving all the Windows, all the Windows operativity to a common area here for any effect in Mistika, independently if it's a color grade or a visual effect or another effect. Okay, so I'm not going to go tool by tool explaining everything because, well, many of the tools have been are the same, but we have included new features in here, and those are the ones that I want to talk about. First thing here in primary, we have changed the names to a more standardized name, leaf gamma gain instead of black gamma white. And in here in the trackball, we have took one of the great features of the precision panels and move it directly to the interface, which is to change the mode of the trackball. This is working normally, so leave, gamma gain, like always. But if I'm going to reset everything from here, but if we enable the offset mode, the trackball change in a way that with the offset mode active, if I change the leaf offset, it basically make a full an offset of the luminance there. If I touch one of the trackballs, internal trackball, it will change the other one, so it's making a chrominance as well offset. And this will work as well in the same way with the tangent. So you enable the mode, and the trackball allows you to change the offset of the primary. Same thing with the contrast. If I enable the contrast mode, this changes to contrast. So if I change the luminance here, I will create the contrast. If I change the color here, the balls will move in opposite direction, making a contrast. This is really interesting, especially for HDR workflows where the offset is really useful. But again, our idea was to simplify the operativity. Not to make it more limited, but simplify for the user. Instead of having like an independent controls everywhere, new buttons everywhere, this is mode for the trackball. When you are making the grading, just spend most of the time with the trackball instead of using thousands of different buttons and knobs and everything. If you can stay all the work, you can do all the work or most of the work with the trackball. The trackball is much easier for you. It's faster at the end. So that's the reason why I include these modes. It's just a simple toggle. The moment that I disable it, I come back to the previous situation. All right. Then we have the saturation here. In another way of control, we have included the sliders, which is at the end. Let me press it. Which makes a bit easier to control the saturation because it makes it more visual. And we have redesigned as well the printer steps. Now they work like always. This is a really loved tool in Mistika. But now we have organized all the buttons. So instead of having like a huge amount of buttons there, putting in a small space, we have organized in a much more visual way. We have the RGB, the cyan, magenta, and yellow, then the different steps, and the different ways to control the printer: offset, contrast, black, and white. Great thing, and this is a new functionality, we have included the temperature and the tint controls. And one of the most interesting thing of this, I'm going to make some contrast here just to make it look a bit nicer. Okay. And maybe decrease, okay, something like that. Okay, so one of the most important things here for temperature and tint is that those works with the printer steps. So if I change to 1/4, I can just increase or decrease the temperature in 1/4. If I change to medium, it changes to medium. If I select 1, it's steps in 1. So again, this is another example of Mistika functionality when we talk about color. It's not that in Mistika you have just many more color tools. It's the fact that all those tools can be controlled in a very subtle way, in a very smooth way, because you can select even, quarter of a stop, which is nothing at the end. It's just really small change. So it allows you a huge flexibility when working with color. Now, another great improvement here in primary is the new pivot system. We have included this graphic over here, which works from input or from output. So if I change the from output, you see that the graphics change it. Normally, you will have it. You will want to work on input because, as you know, primary bands, etc., work in parallel. So you don't want to see the real changes that you are doing in the imaging here. You have the scopes for that. So these are the waveform that you use to set your pivots, and the pivots can be controlled in a very interactive way by just moving the pivots up and down. We have the white, the soft clip, and the black in here. Or you can use the number like always. The thing is, in previous version, those numbers look a bit abstract. It wasn't clear what they were doing. Now it's much easier to understand because now we have two graphics. We have the waveform and we have these curves, this RGB curve, to see the reaction of the trackball. So if I move, for example, black, we can just see how this works. It's pretty simple and it's much more obvious to understand what you are doing in primary here. Really important as well is that we have this list of presets. We have the video grade, which is the default one. We have the HDR mode, which basically changes the white point. They put it in another position, around 50 here, and enables the NISoft. Before talking about the HDR mode, I'm going to talk about the NISoft because it's one of those tools that were a bit hidden in the previous Mistika version, and it's really useful. For example, in this particular case, I have this the sun here, this overexposed part, and if I change the gamma or the white here, it changes at the end everything. It's moving the whole curve, of course, because we are working in video grade mode in the traditional way to work. Now, let's say that I want to move the gamma and change the gamma without affecting those highlights. Well, I can enable the NISoft, okay, and I can just low my white, and at that moment, you see, now I'm controlling the gamma without affecting the white. I'm going to enable one scope so we can see it clearly.